They won't do that. Jim Webb sitting back there, he was there and helped me to write that law. The Republicans never tell the truth about anything when they can blame the Democrats for something they did.
Sir, of your battery.
That's right.
Recall.
But I wouldn't trust the Russians as far as I could see them. I know them pretty well. They never have kept an agreement. If they'll reform and start keeping agreements, we want to keep trying all the time. I think the people in Russia are good people, but I don't think their government is to be trusted. Never have thought so. We used to come over here to buy merchandise. And the best road to prosperity is to put the little man in business and keep him there and see that everybody has a job. That's what we did. We passed the law that affects that. If they'd enforce that law, the thing will take care of itself.
Can you tell us any recollections of the city?
Well, they were always very kind to us. They were just as happy as they could be when the soldiers came around, and I think they still are.
Without question, it is the excessive importation of crude oil from abroad in competition to the domestic producer of crude oil in the United States. That's not only Oklahoma producers, but all other United States producers.
Does that create an oversupply problem?
Naturally, tremendous oversupply problem. It's resulted in the state of Texas being cut from approximately 18 days supply a few years back to 13 days production rather, only recently, and then just last week Texas reduced their producing days to 9. Louisiana's reduced their production by a substantial percentage, and here today Oklahoma's Corporation Commission is being asked to reduce Oklahoma's production of crude oil by an amount that is equal to half of what they have increased in the last 4 years.
Well, is it cheaper to buy imported oil than domestic oil? West Virginia was here a week or so ago, and he said that unemployment during your administration just before the Korean police action was worse than it is now.
Well, I think he's talking through his hat. You see, it's a wonderful thing when they have to dig up something 10 or 15 years ago to justify what they haven't done.
What would be your reaction to his statement then that that the Republican Party is trying to build prosperity on a peacetime footing while you and Mr. Roosevelt built yours on wartime?
I'd say he's just as crazy as a March hare.
Mrs. Roosevelt, what's your opinion of the so-called crash program with all-out emphasis on scientific studies?
Again, I don't see why we should copy the Soviets. I think we should look at ourselves and decide what we need to do to meet our objectives and our ideals, and then go ahead and do it. And I think we've been very negligent. We have not paid sufficiently high salaries to our teachers. We've not given them sufficient respect. We have not awakened in the people generally a respect for learning as learning, and we are suffering in consequence.
we're down for some reason or other, or leases that are it depends upon how you look at it. To the producer of foreign crude oil, I think that they would say that it's cheaper. But to the American taxpayer, I think that it is more expensive than domestic crude oil for the reason that when you consider the cost of protecting these foreign reserves of crude oil, that is cost to the American taxpayer in military defenses and preparations, then I'm not so sure but what foreign oil is more expensive than domestic crude oil.
I saw, for instance, some things that had come out of this test given in Indiana the other day, which was simply astounding to me. A number of the young people said that scientists needed to be watched. They were spies. Some of them said that only, I think, out of 90 students in American history, only 8 could identify the Bill of Rights. Well, it's appalling. Something is the matter with. We need to look at our own education and at our own ideals and what we really want out of education, if that's what we're getting.
The Commission made a reduction based on the actual runs for the month of January. We cut 11% of the actual runs for the month of January across the board, including all types of production.
How many barrels will this figure out, sir?
It is estimated that with the reduction, the estimated production for the month of March will be in the order of 504,000 barrels per day.
Briefly, sir, why was it necessary to cut the allowable?
By reason of the oversupply of crude oil in the state and in the nation, purchasers had too much crude oil in stock and too much gasoline in storage above a reasonable level.
Now, is this a temporary cut?
We hope it'll be temporary.
Just for the month of March?
It will be just for the month of March. And we have another hearing at the end of March to fix the allowables for the month of April.
You cannot turn this recession around. You cannot go back up that hill until the per capita income, the per capita purchasing power of our people increases.
Well, do you think the situation is going to get worse before it gets better, Senator?
Ernie, economically, I think that we have a better chance for improvement than for further worsening. The improvement will come with greater purchasing power, greater consumption. I know that Congress is going to improve the opportunity of the farmer, some. It'll be a tough battle, but we're going to help him some, which will mean that he'll have greater purchasing power. I know that we're going to move to increase employment. We're going to step up public works. We're going to step up the national defense program. Those will mean more employment. And then if they don't get the job done, I know there is that determination down there that will result in a tax adjustment. And that would mean that 80 million taxpayers would receive a tax reduction. And that would mean greater purchasing power in the hands of 80 million people. And when you add all these things up, it means to me that we're going to have a situation where the purchasing power or consumptive power will be greater, and therefore I think that our chances are better for improvement than for worsening.